Hello and welcome to the Listening Post's unboxing channel on YouTube. Today I'm sharing with you Anthem's brand new home theatre receiver, the MRX 740. This 11.2 channel processor is reinforced with a 7-channel 140 watt power amplifier. The amplification is all allocatable, so if you upgrade your front power amplifiers with something massive to run some prestigious floor standing speakers, you can reallocate the front amplification off to do another job. So you can end up with Atmos and other things like that being implemented from just a 7-channel amplifier. It is awesome. New style, matches the STR integrated amplifiers from Anthem. It's got Atmos, it's got DTSX, it's got streaming, Chromecast, Bluetooth, all of these things, but we'll dive into it and we'll have a really, really good look. Okay, firstly, packaging, very muted, brown. Unusually, it's got scannable information for the serial number and stuff on the top, as well as in a nice colourful corner with model and serial number information, really easy to follow. Again, there's an emulation of that on the opposite corner, so that the model is really obvious for those that are stacking it whichever way it might be, in a warehouse or in a retail environment. Opening it is really, really straightforward. I mean, all of these are just sealed closed with clear packing tape, so a simple enough process as far as a few nicks and you can get into the box really, really easily. So looking at the top, you'll see a couple of things that sort of stand out as being quite unusual for an AV receiver. The first is this additional kind of accessory pack. This is one of the reasons that Anthem is doing such a good job of home theatre. Their setup process and their microphone, the eARC, is amazing, and it comes with the entire system in with the home theatre amplifier. Sliding this take this cover off is pretty straightforward. Okay. And we get to see the microphone setup. The microphone itself is superb quality. It's a USB-C microphone, clearly labelled with eARC, and there's a little thing here about which way you position it. There is a really long USB-C cable, enabling it to be connected to a laptop or other things, and kind of unusually, it comes with a setup tripod as well, which we can open from one end. Obviously, calibration at this level of quality is really, really important, that the microphone is set up appropriately and in the right place. Chucking a mic, on some little tripod on the back of a couch just isn't going to cut it if you're going to run your system to the levels of quality that some of these deserve. So it's wonderful to see that Anthem have provided you with such an awesome tripod stand. Slides together, it's great. And the microphone goes into a nice, firm location in it. It's just awesome to see that they've added such an interesting sort of feature set with their product, enabling you to easily set this up in your home and get the most out of it. And the process is simple, and it's wonderful to see. Now, there was a desiccant bag floating around in there as well. The second sort of brown box is classic accessories. This is the stuff you expect to see in these home theatre amplifiers. What we've got is a British IEC power cord, a US or 2-pin, and then of course a classic Kiwi New Zealand to IEC power cord as well. Getting the amplifier out at this point is relatively straightforward, because once all the accessories have been removed, it's a very easy process as far as getting access to the amplifier. Tipping it forward, you'll see a series of additional accessories. There is some basic sort of warranty contact information, registration, websites, that type of stuff. There's a set of AAA batteries. There's the two Wi-Fi antennas. The unit obviously for both streaming and network control. It's good to see that they've got massive big aerials, so they can maintain good good frequency response, good transmission as far as reception from Wi-Fi. There's also Anthem's actually relatively stock standard remote control. It's worth mentioning, it's nice and easy to hold. It's, once the batteries are in, it fits nicely into the hand and is well balanced, and the basic operations are quick and easy to get access to with the thumb of either the left or right hand. Now, the amplifier itself is held in the box with a couple of pieces of polystyrene, and the basic setup guide is taped between those two. So again, little nicks allows you to get rid of the polystyrene. In the quick setup guide, there's the basics of how to put the batteries in, how to put the power cord in, and some basic interconnections as far as HDMI and audio inputs and outputs. Right. Now the fun begins as we start to actually look at this amplifier for the first time. The bag is taped closed, and sliding it out is relatively straightforward. The amplifier itself, despite its wonderful frequency response and a superb real-world power, it's not particularly heavy. Sure, it's built well, so it's heavy from that perspective, but it's not some mammoth box that you're really going to struggle with trying to sort of get onto shelving or bend the shelving you already have. The amplifier looks stunning, and again it's emulating Anthem's new style choices following the STR range that they introduced a few years ago now. The amplifier has a massive colour display with Anthem logo and model number clearly obvious from the front. It's got a little wee tab to remove the protective front screen if you wish. And then across the bottom, a sneak peek at some of the main features that the amplifier has. It's Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, IMAX Enhanced, DTS:X, as well as HDMI logos and the ARC and eARC logos as well. There's a 6 1/4 headphone socket, and above that the main power, which is a simple relay. The menu can be navigated by the main volume knob, which you see here, with a process of hitting the menu, scrolling up and down and sliding between next, previous and so on as you move through. There's a mute button, the next and input that I implied, next and input change here, and previous and input change here. Select is obviously the enter key associated with navigating the menu and saving the changes that you're making, and of course, as I said, the menu button. The unit has Chromecast audio streaming built in, so it's rather than following some of the previous adopted sort of DTS Play-Fis or other streaming things, they've adopted a more global standard and now feature on board the Chromecast streaming. That's in addition, of course, to its Bluetooth and basic things along those lines. Now the crunching sound that you hear as I move it around is the desiccant bags that are taped to the very base of the unit. It's a good, it's actually pretty good that they've taped them there, because they were not going to move around and freight and potentially rub in the wrong place and leave a mark or something like that. But also it means that it's in with the amplifier before it goes in the bag, preserving it as best as it can as far as the moisture associated with some of the shipping options. While we're looking at it, we've got 4 big robust feet and lots of ventilation underneath the amplifier. Speaking of ventilation and leaning it forward, we see that the unit has more than enough as far as the holes associated with keeping it cool, and at a glance, and please hang around for some close-up photographs, you'll see the now iconic red PCB boards of the Anthem range. Looking at the side, again, a bit more ventilation, and you're seeing that this unit is not overly deep. That's quite critical in its category. There's so many big monsters out there that it becomes quite unwieldy or very difficult to fit it in traditional cabinetry. At the back, most of the magic happens though. This is where we're going to need the inputs and outputs associated with your television and your projectors and screens, the inputs from all manner of different 4K and other enhanced sources. So you see a big long row of HDMI sockets. There are 7 in the front, and then there are 3 HDMI outs. Now they're clearly labelled, the first one being the main HDMI, which features the eARC audio return. There's a paralleled HDMI 2 output, and then there's a switchable or matrix switchable second zone output. It's good to see that Anthem have now invested in some of these features to ensure that those people who are only using 5 speakers can better allocate a second zone for both picture and sound if required. If I understand correctly, the allocation or remapping of amplification allows you to start doing that within zones as well. So looking at the, starting from the top corner, we've got the first of its 2 aerial sockets. We've got 5-volt USB at the rear, simply for the purposes of providing power to external devices. But these are quite handy as far as being able to identify state, as an alternative perhaps to a trigger or something along those lines. There's a wired network, and I recommend if you have the opportunity to always wire any appliance. It reduces the overall Wi-Fi clutter and noise and makes things typically more stable too. There is a series of traditional analog inputs, simply labelled 1 through 5. These can be named and allocated at will within the setup of the amplifier. And then a very large section of white outputs. In fact, all of the outputs are clearly labelled with white, whether they be the speaker outputs or the pre-outs. This enables the user to very clearly identify which inputs and outputs are required, and when it's time to add power amplification, where they may need to go. Again, clearly labelled. There are 3 optical inputs and 1 optical output, along with 2 coaxial inputs off to one side. Beside the coaxes, we've got a couple of triggers. 12 volt. These are 12 volt triggers marked 1, 2 and 3, which can be programmed in the amplifier setup to do all manner of different things. For example, you may be using the amplifier for stereo only. It may turn on a pair of stereo power amplifiers or something like that. In theatre mode, trigger 2 will turn on the other additional power amps, or perhaps being utilised to turn lower screens or something like that from a projector lift or an electric screen in a large cinema environment. It has traditional RS-232 control and a fan for the purposes of cooling. If I understand correctly, that the fan is temperature controlled and current controlled, so if it's a very quiet scene, the fan will die out to ensure that it's not at all can ever be audible in your home theatre. The speaker terminals, and again because this is a 7-channel amplifier, are clearly labelled. You start with the left and right fronts, emulated with back right and back left, and then you've got the surround left and right and of course the centre. The reason for the configuration is because these can all be remapped, and it's one of the reasons that they're then sort of labelled a little bit differently. Because the most likely configurations, of course, are the front and centre, and then you've got the choice of surrounds and backs to add 7.1 or allocate these for Atmos applications. Okay, so there we have it. Anthem's new MRX 740 home theatre amplifier. 11.2 channel processing, 7 by 140 watt power amplification on board. Everything you would need in a lovely, adorable sized box. Sounds brilliant, it's easy to use, it's easy to get the most out of. They've done a decent job of setup with eARC, and it's wonderful to be able to share this with you today at the Listening Post in Christchurch, New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more, subscribe to our channel.